So away to Latin threes. Good morning on this Tuesday. I hope that you guys have been staying safe and warm during the snow days, but have been enjoying yourselves. Welcome to our first digital learning day. This is pretty exciting, and I know that you're probably not as excited, but I'm excited not to have to make up any of these snow days. So today, your assignment for your digital learning day is going to be to complete this page of your packet here. It starts with Indirect Statement Practice, Chapter 47, and goes down to just on the next page to the Discipuli Scienze sul Magistro Curatos essay line. Okay? So you guys are going to translate those. But in order to do that adequately, you need to learn a little bit more about indirect statement, okay? So on Friday, we talked about our infinitives chart. We filled out our infinitives chart, right? We had known the first three. We knew the present active, amare, right, if we're using the first conjugation form. The perfect passive, amari, to be loved. And the present passive. And then the perfect active, amawisse, to have loved, okay? But our new forms came into play as well. We learned the perfect passive, where instead of to have loved, we now have to have been heard, right? Where we just took the fourth principal part and we added essay. And remember, we put all of these into the accusative case because what we said was that we were going to see these mainly, and I'll show you this today, inside indirect statements, right? Which means that their endings as two-word verb forms need to agree with the subject. And the subject inside of an indirect statement is accusative, right? So we made our first one masculine, our second one feminine, our third one lysos esse, we made that masculine plural in case our subject is masculine plural, and auditas esse, we made it feminine plural. Now, all of these endings are interchangeable, but I just gave you some simple ones there, okay? Then we came down to our future active infinitive, to be about to love, right? Where we took the fourth principal part, added UR, just like we would for a future active participle, but then added esse, right? And again, we did the same thing with our accusative endings because of its use. And then we came over here to what I call bonus forms because you never see them, but they are the future passive infinitives. They're real forms where you take the fourth principal part, again, with our accusative endings, and then just eerie. And it's to be, about to be heard, to be, about to be taught. Now, when I taught those in class, you guys all laughed. You said, when in the world would I ever use it? I've never used that in my entire life. How is indirect statement something that's so important that we're using all the time? But I've never used any of those in my life, right? So riddle me that, right? Okay. What we have to understand about indirect statement, okay, and we can kind of understand it from even the basic ones we've been doing. When we have an indirect statement, we have three main things. We have a mav, an accusative subject, and an infinitive. But in our indirect statements, we haven't been translating infinitives as if they're actually infinitives. We've been translating them as something different, as just regular main verbs. That's where the answer lies to the question, when would I ever use to be about to love or to be about to be heard? The answer is that you likely wouldn't use those terms exactly. However, indirect statement uses infinitives in a different way than we've been taught, okay? Really, when using infinitives in indirect statement, it all comes down to time relationships. And understanding the tense of the infinitive you have, okay? For example, all right, normally present means that something is happening right now, right? Well, in indirect statement, present means that the action of the infinitive is happening at the same time as the action of the main verb. Okay? Happening at the same time as the action of the main verb. Now, the sentences you're going to deal with in your homework today, all right, all have what are called primary MAVs, primary mental action verbs, meaning that the main verb inside of your indirect statement is going to be, your MAV in your indirect statement is going to be present tense. Okay? That's what a primary MAV means. It means that the mental action verb, the verb that is setting up your indirect statement, is going to be present tense. Which means that if I use that paired with a present tense infinitive like amare, those two actions are happening at the same time, namely both in the present. Okay? So simply what I'm going to do is I'm actually really not going to translate a word, an infinitive like this, an indirect statement, as an infinitive. Instead, I'm going to do it as a present tense verb. So for example, I wouldn't say Marcus says Sarah to love Tom. I'd say Marcus says that Sarah loves Tom or is loving Tom. Very simple there. So I'm going to take this and because it's present, translate it as it's happening at the same time, just as a regular verb. The same applies to passive, just making it passive. So if I say Marcus says that Sarah is loved, or Marcus says Sarah to be loved by Tom, I'm not going to translate that way. I'm going to say Marcus says, that's happening right now. I want to make this other action happen right now, the action of the infinitive. So I want to say Marcus says that Sarah is loved or is being loved. Okay? When we move down to perfect, right, this is where it's going to be even more helpful because I would never say to have loved, to have been heard. Or, this should be say to have been loved. Or to have been loved, right? I wouldn't say Marcus says Juliet to have loved Romeo or to have been loved by Romeo. I wouldn't say that, okay? So, for perfect, instead of happening at the same time, perfect means that the action of my infinitive, all right, is happening before the action of the main verb, before the action of the mental action verb. That's what a perfect infinitive means. Now remember, we're only dealing with primary mavs right now. So my primary mav still is present tense. It's only in the present, okay? So that makes it pretty simple, actually. All I have to do when I have a primary mental action verb, a present tense mav, and a perfect infinitive with an isse or a matem esse, is make the infinitive action, the actual action of the indirect statement, happen prior to that of the verb. Since the verb's present, I really just have to make it happen simple past. So for example, if I say, Marcus says Romeo to have loved Juliet, okay? That doesn't make a lot of sense in English, but if I take this into account, I just want to make that to have loved happen before says. So I'd say Marcus says that Romeo loved Juliet or was loving Juliet. Something that makes it simple past, right? This is how I would translate my infinitive if I had a primary math, all right? Over here, I do the same thing. If I want to say Marcus says Juliet to have been loved by Romeo, I don't speak like that in English. But if I take my thought into account and make this infinitive action happen before the present, it becomes much clearer. Marcus says Juliet was loved by Romeo. Or I could also say has been loved. I can't do had been loved. Don't do that yet. I'm going to tell you later we're going to learn when to use that. That's going to be something. But for right now, I just want to make it simple past before the action of the math, right? And that makes sense. If I say Marcus says that Romeo loved Juliet, the Romeo loving Juliet happened before Marcus makes that statement, makes that claim, okay? Moving down to the future, right, and some of you probably already guessed, if, we have same time up here and infinitive before here, future simply means that my infinitive action happens after that of the main verb, okay? Again, I'm dealing with primary mavs, so my main verb is again present, okay? Very simple. So now these are the ones that you absolutely have to use it, because if I say, Marcus says Romeo to be about to love Juliet, I mean, nobody can follow that sentence, right? So you need to make that in a more English way, right? I mean, an Englishy way, for lack of a better term. You need to make that better, okay? But if we think about it, right? Simply all this means is the infinitive action needs to happen after that of the main verb. Makes it much clearer. Marcus says, well, he's saying it right now. So to make the infinitive happen after it, I could just say something like will, and that's what I'm going to do. Marcus says that Romeo will love Juliet, and that's what we're going to put here. Will love or shall love would be fine as well. Okay? Over here, it's the same deal, right? Marcus says Juliet to be about to be loved by Romeo. I don't know why I keep doing this. To be about to be loved by Romeo. No, right? But makes total sense to say Marcus says that Juliet will be loved by Romeo or shall be loved by Romeo. Okay? Again, just making it so that the infinitive happens after that of the present tense primary mav main verb. If I can do that, I've used my infinitives correctly. Okay? So let's step down here and do one example. All right? Just to kind of show you what I mean. In this sentence, sextus audit Corneliam in culina ad Marcum ova iacere. Okay? On yours it says oas. That was a mistake. The word for egg is oum oe, so I changed it. It's neuter. You can change it on yours too. Okay? So if I'm going through and trying to highlight what I have audit. That's definitely my mav, right? I have iacere is my infinitive. Okay? And it seems like oa could be accusative. Ad Marcum's a prepositional phrase. Oa could be accusative, so could Corneliam. My verb means to throw, so it's more likely that Cornelia is throwing eggs than eggs are throwing Cornelia. Okay? I've got my three things I need. So I'm going to start off by saying Sextus hears. Notice that my mav is a primary mav. All of these will be. Okay, down to 11, which is what you're doing today. So Sextus hears. And then I would want to say that, right? And then my accusative subject, just like we've been doing. Sextus hears that Cornelia. Now this is where I have to stop and think for a second. Okay, I need to look at my infinitive. My infinitive here, all right, is a present tense infinitive, meaning it needs to happen at the same time as my mav, which is hears. Okay, so I need that to happen at the exact same time, both in the present. All right, this word means to throw. So I could say Sextus hears that Cornelia, if I wanted to say right now, is throwing eggs in the kitchen at Marcus. And I could obviously throw in the kitchen and add Marcus wherever I wanted to in that sentence. And then I need to go back and check. Okay, so is here's happening the same time that Cornelia is throwing these eggs? It seems so. Okay? And if I come up here, I can always check too, right? Seems as I have a present active infinitive and a primary mav. So present active infinitive, primary mav, loves is loving. Great. So it would be throws or is throwing. So I also could have said Sextus hears that Cornelia throws eggs in the kitchen at Marcus. Okay? You'll notice that many of the sentences are very much the same. In fact, 2 and 3 are the exact same sentence, only with the infinitives changed. So just make sure to go back and take a look at the infinitives. This is really just getting you practice, very, very small primary practice, dealing with infinitives of different tense as you go through. Okay? I hope you guys have a wonderful snow day. This should not take you very long, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. All right? Thank you very much. Walete.